Watcher, welcome back to the channel. This is the Essential Handyman, I'm Ian. This is the second of a two-part series on how to get electric lawnmowers working when you've overwintered them with petrol in, etc. In the first video I took you through how to check and clean the oil filter, the spark plug, the oil and the petrol, and I showed you all of those in depth. If you haven't watched that first video yet, I advise you stop this video, go back and watch that one, because that's really part one that leads on to this. Now in this video I'm going to be showing you how to check the carburetor, because in the first video, as you'll know, the carburetor, the fuel tank was full of very old oil. Instead of it being nice and clear, it was almost black. It really was disgusting. So in this video I'm going to take you through and show you the steps to clean that carburetor so you can get this thing working without having to go to a lawnmower specialist and pay, up to or even more than £100. Okay, we're assuming that the tank is empty. If it's not, then go back and watch video one, as I say. That will show you how to drain down the tank. First thing you want to do is remove the air filter box and the air filter. So pushing down on the two lugs at the top, that just tilts out, pull it out at the bottom, keep the air filter and the pre-filter etc in there to one side. Leaves us with these two bolts here that we have to remove, and that can be done using a 10mm spanner, although because it's on an angle it's not the easiest. The easiest way is to use a socket set, just a 10mm. We're going to keep the parts safe using one of these magnetic trays. If you haven't got one of these already, I recommend you get yourself one. They just magnetise straight on there and they don't fall off. It's a good way of making sure you don't lose your bits and pieces, and it keeps all your nuts and bits and bobs together when you're doing such a project. Next thing to do is to remove the air filter box. There's two pipes that attach itself to the engine. There's one on the right, one on the left. This pipe on the right, this is connected to plastic, this is connected to metal. Almost always easier to remove something connected to metal. So very gently, just pull this pipe off of the engine there. And out it comes away. Okay, if I pull the air filter box gently forward now, you will see that the second pipe on the right hand side, that connects the primer bulb with the carburetor. Don't know if you can see down here, there's a little metal clip. This is like just a hose clamp really. Can you see that there? This metal hose clamp. So gently we lift this up and away from the metal, leaving it up, make sure we don't lose it. And we pull this lead off of here. And that takes the air filter box off of the machine and exposes the carburetor. Now, just like before, when we're keeping our metal things contained together, get yourself a little plastic box, put all your bits and pieces in a box so you don't lose anything. Now, on the front of the carburetor we have got a gasket. Just take that off, be careful not to lose it. Make a note of the orientation. This is quite a firm one actually. Depending on whether or not the engine starts or not, I may be looking to replace this. This is quite a firm gasket, but we're obviously going to put this in our bucket over here, nice and safe. Now the next thing, this line here, this rubber tube is the fuel that comes into the gasket. We're going to squeeze this clamp, move it up there. Now holding the carburetor, keeping it still, we're going to move the fuel line in away from the carburetor. Some of these are quite hard, which this one is, so I'm going to get a little pair of needle nose pliers and we'll just tease it off of there. Okay, just give that a little bit of assistance. It's starting to move now. We've got a little bit of a gap, so we can put the pliers in there and just push up. It's got a ridge on the inlet, so don't use the pliers over there. Being careful, of course, not to lose this spring here. Now this can come off. The only thing we've got now left is a linkage. We've got a little bit of fuel dripping down here, so I'm going to put a bit of a shop towel down there. There we go. This is a good example of you let me do this and I make the mistakes and you learn from them. So when you're doing this, get your shop down there, towel down there first, catch any fuel that might come out of that line. Okay, now we're going to remove this linkage. Now this is where a gentle hand is required. We've got a linkage here and the throttle wire. Just using your needle nose pliers, take the top of the linkage wire and just tease it out of the hole. And allow that just to dangle down there. This is your throttle, so when you're pulling forward on the carburetor, if you just twist on this, it should expose the wire to the point where it can come out. And there we are. I'm just going to leave that down there as well. When you take this off, be very careful. Okay, it's not on here, it stayed here. We have a gasket here. Sometimes it will stay on the carburetor. You don't really want that. We want to push that back there because it's not going to get lost unless of course the lawnmower falls over. So now we have the carburetor in our hand. Okay, I've moved into the workshop where I've got more control conditions and less chance of moving something. And you will note that even though I drained this tank down completely, still quite a lot of petrol is in the carburetor. So I'm going to put some more shop towel down. Obviously, do this in a well ventilated area. Okay, the first thing we need to do is remove the float bowl from the bottom of the carburetor. Again, this is just a 10mm spanner. We're going to take that off of here. Okay, that's quite stiff. Take it off. Making sure we've got our little magnetic bowl tray. This is going to allow the float bowl to come off. Be careful you don't lose the gasket on this screw. And when this bowl comes off, quite a lot of oil coming out there. Just pull it out. There's another gasket on the inside of here. Make sure you do not lose that because that's quite loose, as you can see. Put that to the side. Get some more shop towel down. It's important to note that when you take the float bowl off, check it to make sure there's any debris or scale or rust, and if it's rusted or scaled, the carburetor may well be kaput and you need a new one. Okay, looking at this white thing is called the float. There's a little float pin at the top, which you won't need needle nose pliers to take out. It does come out freely. So take out the float pin, put that safely in your magnetic tray. You can just pull out the float. Okay, now on this, at the very top of it, you can see we've got a pointy bit which is called the float needle. It's important that all of this is clean. Okay, the next thing we need to do is to stick a flat bladed screwdriver in this hole here. This is where the jet is, and that's a little bit too big. It's catching on the shoulders, and we get a smaller screwdriver. So we have a smaller screwdriver. We're going to remove the main jet. Okay, now that's fairly gunked up. It took a little bit of effort to get it out. So take the fuel nozzle, put that in your magnetic tray. And if we look here, we can see hanging down here is the emulsion tube. Now, quite often when you've got stale fuel and everything's a little bit nasty, that will stay up there. You need to just give this a little bit of a push there, and then I'm afraid just a little bit of brute force. There we are. And then we have the emulsion tube. It's also got a hole that goes all the way through it. That's clear. But if you look here, it's got, oops, it's got holes running down the side of it. That is, those are jets. They all need to be cleared out. Do take note, this is a different shape. So the thin end will go back in first and the fat end will sit near the jet. Please remember that you've got fuel soaked shop rags now, which are going to be very flammable, so dispose of these carefully. You may want to put them outside. Put them in a bucket of water is a good way of making sure they don't ignite. Don't leave them in the shop. If you've got a garden chimney or a fire pit, just put them in there and you can burn them at your leisure. So looking at the carburetor, we've got lots of different holes and avenues and routes, etc. So what I would use now would be carb and air take cleaner. So give everything here a good dosing, going through all the holes. So while the carburetor is set to the side and just drying off there, we're going to turn our attention to the jet nozzle and the emulsion tube. This is high pressure, so I'm going to move this away, otherwise it might blow away as we're doing the jet. This is what I'm doing here. I'm doing this for the benefit of the camera. If I wasn't recording this, I'll be doing this in the doorway so that any residue goes out into the yard. Same with the emulsion tube. Now, the high pressure going on each end should have cleared out all of those little tubes along the edge. While we're waiting for those to dry, we can turn our attention to the bulb casing and give that a little bit of a clean out. Making sure it's all nice and free of debris and residue and nice and dry, looking perfect. And also, very gently, just have a look at your O-ring there. Hold it gently in some paper towel and just pull it through. You don't want to stretch this. You just want to give it a little bit of a clean. Okay, now doing that, I can feel that this is a little bit frayed. If you have a new one, this will be a good time to replace it. If not, just install it back on and see how you get on. If it still doesn't start, which I don't think it's going to affect it that badly, you can then look at getting some replacement O-rings for the mower. So now that the carburetor cleaner has evaporated and it's all dried up, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hit this with some compressed air. If you're lucky enough to have a compressor in your workshop, garage, etc., great, use that. If not, what I tend to use are these air dusters. You can buy these just off Amazon. In fact, I'll leave links to all of these items in the description below. They are Amazon affiliate links, so I'll get a few pennies back if you buy anything from them. And as always, if you're looking on my video and you click on one of my links and it says, you know, incorrect link or something, leave a message down below in the comments and I'll give you the correct link to use. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to blow this out with this compressed air from the air duster. Now, because this is pretty cold to the touch, very gently I'm going to use needle nose on the jet. And also on the emulsion tube. I'm not squeezing this tight, I'm just literally holding it very gently. Oops, see what I mean? Come on, machine, I did now. And what I will do, I'm going to block up the end of this so it doesn't go all the way through the tube, so it comes out of the side. It's coming out the little holes at the side of the tube. That should have cleared them. Okay, first thing we're going to do is we're going to reinsert the emulsion tube, small end first. It pops in there. Then we're going to get the jet. Now we've got to install this with the slotted side out so we can tighten it up with our screwdriver. Get the screwdriver in there, just nice and gently. Just coming, that's at the bottom, just a pinch. So that's in there. Next we put the float back on. We've got the float pin there. That just gently slides over there with the float pin going into the hole. Then we take the float retainer pin and gently, you can't really see, can you? Put that through the hole here, through the float arm. This is a bit tricky sometimes. There we go, all the way through, you can see it there. And then the float will just move freely with the pointed end in there. Then we take our rubber gasket, we seat it back around the edge, just give it a little bit of a touch with a screwdriver, make sure it's seated properly. And the bulb cover. Now this is important that you orientate this properly. This drain off point here needs to go the same side as this jet on the left. So that goes in there. Then we reinstall the bolt here. Just pinching that up with a 10mm spanner. Obviously do your checks to make sure that there's no part of the O-ring sticking out, protruding around the edge. Get your best toothbrush, give that a final clean before you clean your teeth tonight with the same brush, eh? Okay, we'll put the carburetor back on. We get the governor arm, put that in there first of all. And we slide our carburetor back on here. We've got a little hole there that this spring goes into. This is the most awkward bit of the whole reassembly. Okay, well, nice and easy. That went in easier than I thought it'd be. Push that back on there. Then we get this hose, we reattach this to the right hand side here, pushing that on, putting our clamp back down to secure it. Excuse my hands in the way of the camera. Push that on there, okay, perfect. Then we get our other gasket, putting it on the way it came off, which is like so. Then we need to reattach this hose here. We still got the clamp on there, so we, excuse my hands, in the way, push that down over there, get the little clamp, move that down, clamp that there. Sorry, let's get that a little bit lower, it's not actually doing anything at the moment. Apologies, my arms are the way. There we are. Then So we've got the 2 holes here. This goes back on there. I'm going to put these 2 screws on, the nuts on rather, before I attach the lead on the right, and that will stop the back of the air filter box from moving around while I'm doing trying to attach the hose. Just cinch that down a little bit. We're going to reattach that hose onto there. Yeah, that's on there good. Happy with that. Last things last, we get an air filter and a pre-air filter. Attach that back on here and push these 2 lugs through the top. Oops, maybe it's not connected properly. Let's just relocate that. There we are. And that's that reassembled. Always check your box, make sure it's got a random bit still in there, some sort of washer or nut or O-ring. It's good, everything's been used up. Okay, hope you enjoyed that quick tutorial on how to remove and clean your carburetor from your petrol lawnmower. Thanks for watching, see you on the next video. See ya.